Hello and welcome to another episode of the Gohndim and Gilmore Show. Today's episode is brought to you by the Boston News Network, the only new age digital newspaper that brings you only the facts.
Welcome back to another episode of the Gohndim and Gilmore Show. We're here with a very special guest this week, none other than viral sensation Ken Bone. Ken, how are you?
I'm doing real well. How are you?
I'm doing well, and we both thank you for being here on such short notice. We were talking really briefly on Twitter, and you agreed to come on the show, so we truly appreciate that.
I'm happy to do it. I'm willing to talk to just about anybody, and coming up on 10 years past my viral moment. At this point, anybody who's willing to have me on the show, I'm just a hog for airtime. Bring me on.
I kind of told Gilmore to message you almost as a joke. We didn't think you'd even respond or want to come on the show. And the tweet that we first linked in our Discord was you responding to Doug Collins, and you said, quote, "Fuck you, you cowardly little bitch." And I just got such a good crack out of that. And so we just thought we'd message you, and it worked out. So again, thanks for being here.
Oh, yeah, thanks. Happy to be here. Usually I try to, be a little clever or come up with some kind of quip or, whatever. But that tweet from Doug just pissed me off so bad. One of your employees, basically a guy that works under your purview in the Veterans Affairs office, gets fucking murdered. And then you care so much about gobbling Trump dick that you can't even call it a murder. That you got to give this wishy-washy response in line with the administration. What a pussy.
We completely agree. It's very disgusting. And not calling it a murder. It was just being so wishy-washy that you wouldn't even know what happened. You would just think it was like an unfortunate event that occurred. There wasn't even anything nothing nefarious about it. There's nothing there at all.
From reading the tweet, you'd almost think that Mr. Preddy had slipped on the ice and broken his neck, rather than being executed in the middle of the street by masked thugs.
Yeah, it's a shame, and we'll go back to the ice topic because obviously that's what we want to talk about with you. But again, for some background for people who may not know or were too young to know at the time, so it is the 10-year anniversary of your appearance during the 2016 presidential debate between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton. When you asked, I believe you asked Donald Trump the question regarding energy policy and minimizing job loss for fossil fuels. It was Trump, right?
In that format, the question was for both, and I think Secretary Clinton got to answer first.
Okay.
But Trump also had to answer. Neither one of them really gave an answer. But yeah, the question was about energy policy because I work in the fossil fuel power industry.
You still work in that industry, Stan?
Yeah, I still do. I work. I'm a training supervisor now. I've been in operations my whole career for about 16 years, but now I've moved into training.
Very cool. And I guess you said they didn't really give answers directly to your questions, so I guess it didn't really help you in your decision making there. And I think you are open about this publicly that you did end up voting for Hillary in 2016. Is that right?
Yeah, before the election, I had I wanted to keep an open mind because I didn't like Hillary Clinton. I've never liked Hillary Clinton ever since she got elected to the Senate in New York. That happened when I was in high school. And I thought, surely the people of New York will not elect this lady just because she is the outgoing first lady. They're going to want somebody who actually represents them, who didn't just buy a house 2 days before the deadline to establish residency in our state just because there's a Senate seat open in our state. They're not going to fall for that. And they did. And I was like, this sucks. That is just politics at its most disgusting, gross level. So that left a bad taste in my mouth for years. But then there's Donald Trump, the game show host. And I'm like, well, this guy kind of sucks too. Why should anybody vote for him? And I start weighing my options, and it's like, well, working in the field that I do, and the town I come from is a little steel town called Granite City, Illinois. It's all based around a steel mill owned by U.S. Steel. I'm like, man, maybe he'll be better for the steel industry. I know he's not great for unions, which is bad, but overall, maybe he'll be better. And a lot of people in my hometown like him. Yeah, maybe I'll give him a shot. So I was considering it. And then I got selected for the debate. And then a lot of people don't realize this when they give everybody who was at that debate a hard time for being undecided. We all got picked as uncommitted voters before the Access Hollywood tape came out. So of the 40 of us that were on that stage, I bet you there weren't very many uncommitted voters left one way or the other by the time the debate actually rolled around.
That's interesting. I couldn't remember the timing of that. I was kind of surprised that people were surprised that there were uncommitted voters at that time, because a lot of my friends and family weren't necessarily uncommitted, but they certainly had qualms about both candidates. And a lot of people I know did vote third party. Are you surprised that people at that point thought there were uncommitted voters, I guess, still?
No, I mean, because people wanted to label it as like, oh, you couldn't decide between these two candidates, you must be an idiot. It's like, no, they didn't pick undecided voters. The more correct term is uncommitted voters, and it was based on having an unfavorable opinion of both candidates, both main party candidates. And that was not just those of us on the stage, it was a vast majority of the voting public. They were statistically the two least popular major party candidates since they started tracking that as a metric. So you got the number 1 and the number 2 seed of unpopular candidates running against each other. Of course, there would be a ton of people who were on paper classified as uncommitted. I did end up voting for Hillary Clinton because I'm like, yeah, okay, the more I hear Trump talk, the more it sounds like he's going to do things like, try to stuff the Supreme Court with people that might eventually overturn Obergefell versus the state of New York, which gave us marriage equality. And I'm like, man, that would be gross. I think on the Jimmy Kimmel show, I called that that would be unconscionable. And, I stand by that. And it sure seems like that's the direction he tried to move the court with the overturning of Roe v. Wade. I certainly didn't think that would actually happen. But it did. And those are the consequences of putting a person like that in power. But I voted for Hillary because I just thought, I don't think she'll be a disaster for me personally. She won't be as good as Trump, most likely, for my career. But it won't be a disaster, and she'll be better for the country, even if I don't like her that much. And I guess we'll never know. Or, I mean, really, we do know. I mean, how much? I don't think she would have put armed thugs on the street, capping people in the back for exercising their constitutional rights.
At least not in America, right?
No, I mean, Hillary Clinton only suicided people who refused to donate to her foundation or whatever the meme is. That's
there you go.
Not for protesting.
So what were your thoughts after Election Day 2016 when it was Trump who was elected? What were your immediate thoughts, if you remember?
I was shocked. For Election Day, I was in New York at Twitter's East Coast office. They had a big election party out there, and I was doing an endorsement for Izod, the company that made the sweater. And they made this deal with Twitter, and they promoted me on Twitter and made a Twitter emoji out of me and all kinds of stuff. And they're like, come out to this party and we'll do pictures and we'll film stuff and whatever. So I go out there and I got the flu, probably from traveling around so much.
Oh my God.
And I was as sick as I've ever been. I felt awful. I was trying to wear a mask before it was cool back in 2016. Trying not to infect the whole Twitter office. So in between pictures and videos and stuff, I'm got my shirt up over my face and whatever. But the whole night was kind of a blur between the alcohol and the NyQuil and stuff. But then my wife and I are laying in bed in the hotel and we're looking at the results come in and we see Florida's going this way and Nevada's going this way. It's like, he's going to win. What the hell? This is not a joke anymore. He's going to for real win. He's yep, Wisconsin just came in. He's going to freaking win. And then I wake up and, of course, I'm terminally online at that point. And the hate and discontent online is like nothing we had ever seen before. And I get it. But man, people were so angry and so furious. And I was just in stunned disbelief. Like everybody else, I just figured Hillary was going to walk away with it because Donald Trump was some joke candidate. And I guess the people of America showed me.
I feel like even a lot of my conservative friends were almost stunned that it happened too. It felt like even on both sides of the aisle, even the ones that reluctantly voted for him or just didn't really, voted against Hillary, I guess. I think even a lot of those people were just like, we actually did this. And not so much it was a regret, but it felt like almost a turning point in I guess, the course of our nation.
Well, I think it should be taught in civics classes. So there's two elections in my lifetime that should be taught in civics classes forever, and that's Donald Trump getting elected, and at least some of what put him over the top were people voting for him that thought like, nah, he probably won't win, but I really don't want to vote for the other lady, so I'll just vote for him. Well, that's how a third party could win. Freaking Ralph Nader or whatever could have won if everybody just voted for him, figuring, he can't win, but I don't like anybody else, so I'll vote for Nader or I'll vote for Ross Perot. That could have happened. And then the other one was the election 2000, which you guys are probably a little young for. That was Gore versus Bush with the whole hanging Chad situation in Florida, where basically George W. Bush won the presidency by questionable means with some court decisions, and about 120 votes down in Florida was the deciding factor. So anytime you're teaching high school kids civics, you're like, hey, when you think every vote doesn't count, look at the election of 2000, where, the amount of people that go to a high school basketball game in Iowa decided the election.
Yeah, and people don't remember, and I was actually talking about this the other day, the 2000 election, is the Supreme Court told Florida to stop recounting votes because they thought it'd be unfair if the results did change overnight. And then after 2 weeks, told them to recount that it was too late to recount the votes at that point in time. So I always tell people, even if you think your state's, safe blue, safe red, whatever it may be, you should still vote. You should still get your voice out there because you'll regret it if, you didn't vote or you voted the opposite way or voted for a third party and it turns out differently than you expected.
Yeah, and all those states that are safe blue and safe red now, like Florida is extremely firmly red. Well, at the time, it was the swing state.
Yeah.
And that's only 6 elections ago. Like, it's a long time. 26 years is a long time, but that's only 6 presidential election cycles. So,
yeah, I mean, California used to be a red state, so you never know.
Yeah. The Deep South used to be the Democrat stronghold not that long ago. We're talking about within my lifetime. I'm 43 years old. When I was, young, like in junior high school, the Dixiecrats ruled the South. Georgia, Alabama, all those were guaranteed Democrat votes.
Yeah. So that was back in 2016. I believe in 2020 you voted third party. Is that right?
Yeah, so I was pretty disgruntled at Donald Trump, obviously, after term 1. And then I didn't like Joe Biden either, because it's like, I felt like he screwed Bernie. And so Bernie had got screwed twice. I would have voted Bernie Sanders 100%. But I was so upset at that. And I have the benefit of living in Illinois, which I know we just said, no state is solid blue or solid red. But
Sure.
Illinois ain't going red. So I felt like I had the leeway to sort of do a protest vote. And that's why I voted third party and why I felt comfortable announcing it after several years of, refusing to say publicly who I had voted for.
And you announced that after the vote in 2020, or was this before you said you were going to vote for third party?
I mail-in voted, so I sent it in like a week before Election Day. So I announced it as sort of a combination protest and promotion for mail-in voting. And then also, like, I just love attention. I don't know. I'm a psychopath.
That's fair. And I'm assuming in 2024, I don't know if you've been public about that, if you want to speak about who you voted for in 2024.
Oh, well, not a lot of people have really asked me because the, time has just gone by or whatever. But I'm sure I've probably told somebody before. But I voted for Kamala Harris in 24. I'm not a huge Harris fan, but I'm like, come on, we gotta do something. And even if it felt like a little bit of, holding your nose and voting, it's like, okay, I'll do it. She wasn't. I don't hate Kamala Harris for her positions or anything. She's basically a moderate Democrat. She was just such an unpopular politician. I didn't feel like she'd get a whole lot done and be that effective. And, the way that she got picked as the candidate was kind of messed up with holding Joe in there after everybody knew that he should have been primaried. But I was like, well, I'm definitely not going to vote Trump. And I already did my protest vote thing. I don't think I'll get any more mileage out of, get the message out or whatever anymore with that. So I thought it was a more important message to send, like, let's not vote for Donald Trump again. And then he friggin' won the popular vote. So America showed me again.
Would you have preferred that Joe Biden remained the candidate in 2024 for the Democrats?
Looking back, probably. Like, it was obvious that he was on the decline, and he had bungled a few things during his presidency. I love that we left Afghanistan. I didn't like the way we did it. I think that's the popular consensus. We had 20 years of that forever war to organize a withdrawal, and then we didn't. But you could do a whole series of episodes about that. But yeah, looking back, I think I would have preferred him to stay the candidate, even if it was likely he would have had, not been able to serve out his whole term, because he would have been more likely to win at that point. His popularity was really low, but switching gears with like 7 weeks to go or whatever it was, I just don't see how that could have worked.
I'm honestly a little surprised that Biden was able even to beat Trump in 2020, to be honest. So I don't know. I'm not sure if either of them would have beat him in 2024, but we will never know, I guess.
If it hadn't been for COVID, I think Trump would have run away with 2020 because his base was still fully on board with, they still are now. But the swing voters and the angry independents did not like the handling of COVID. Operation Warp Speed, yeah, that's nice and whatever, but then the weird mixed messaging about inject bleach into yourself. Oh no, really, it was a joke. Like, well, don't joke about the friggin' plague, dude. And then just the lockdowns, and there was a lot going on there that just disgruntled a bunch of people, and it totally cost him the election.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think that his handling of COVID and the economy kind of downtailing, which obviously the economy was downtailing everywhere, so hard to really combat that. But I totally agree. That was the reason he probably lost in 2020. I think the reason why Kamala lost in 2024, in part of what you're saying, and in part the inflation that was brought about from coming out of COVID. So I think it was, a lot of outside of external factors that led to the switch between 2016 to 2020 and 2020 to 2024. But, I guess we'll never know one way or the other. But to get to more into kind of current events here, obviously a lot's gone on. We've only been, just over a year into this second term, and hopefully last term for Donald Trump. We mentioned before the ICE raids. We've also mentioned, we haven't mentioned yet, but also things with Venezuela, threats against Greenland. I guess we'll start with ICE first because that's what kind of raises conversation. So when did you start finding the ICE and treatment of citizens and immigrants? When did you start finding that an issue? I'm assuming it was before the killing of Renee Good. Is that right?
Oh yeah, as soon as they started putting guys on the streets wearing tactical vests and masks over their faces, it's like, wait a minute. This is the kind of stuff that you would expect at the southern border of Texas if they were actually gonna fight against the cartel. This is not what you send to the restaurant to bust, guys that don't have their green card out of the kitchen, or to the farm to get migrant workers who overstayed their visas, which, by the way, is by far the most common form of illegal immigration. Is not people illegally crossing the border. It's people overstaying their visa. That's why they're so much harder to catch. But that's not the kind of people you send after them. And then just seeing the funding for ICE, the funding for ICE and the Border Patrol now is more than the FAA and NASA and the FTC and several other important government agencies all combined, just to be Trump's weird personal army. And then what the hell is this? And then as soon as it's announced, within a couple of weeks, you're seeing these guys on the streets. Wait a minute, they basically have the powers of police and federal agents, and they got an orientation and a team building exercise where they put together a fucking set of Legos with no instructions with their buddies at the lunchroom table, and now they're out there with a gun. What the hell? I got more training to be a pizza delivery guy when I was doing that in college before I got to go out and do it. And now you're seeing the consequences of that. So I was not on board at all. Now, if you want to enforce immigration law, do it. But the way you really do it is not going to happen, especially in a Trump administration, because the way you do it is you go after the people that are hiring undocumented workers and exploiting them as like an underclass. So like if you're an undocumented worker and you're working on a farm or in a restaurant or whatever, there's a pretty good chance that there's no way you can report violations to OSHA or violations of like wage theft or, to the labor board, to DOL or any other violations. You're being exploited, but you can't do anything about it because that would out yourself as an undocumented immigrant. So what they should be doing is going after these employers. That would help solve the minimum wage crisis, by the way, because it would raise the floor for wages. And we could also sort out like the immigration process. If I'm the emperor of the country after Trump's done being emperor, they make Emperor Ken Bone. My immigration policy is: you want to come in, come on in. Let's make sure you don't have any heroin crammed up your butt. You don't have any diseases that are going to cause the next plague, so we'll quarantine you for a little bit. And you're not trafficking anybody. And you're not a murderer fleeing your home country. Other than that, come on in. Maybe we'll keep track of you for a little while, make sure you got a job or whatever. And with some of the money we save from this ridiculousness and the tax revenue we get from you coming in and being part of the labor base, maybe we'll fund universal health care or something crazy like that. You all can do some more episodes on that another time.
What do you think is Trump's motivation, I guess, for the way he's deploying ICE? I mean, do you tend to think that he's using it just as a hammer to target blue states and blue cities?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of a lot of Trump's worst qualities. One, that he wants to leave a legacy. He wants his name mentioned in history books, and I don't think he cares if that's positive or negative mentions. He just wants the word Trump written in books a lot of times. Combine that with, he just seems to be a racist dude. And I don't know if he's more racist than the average 70-whatever-year-old guy. A lot of old people are racist because it's the era they grew up in, which sucks, but it is what it is. A lot of old people grew up around racism and never managed to grow out of it. Maybe he's more racist than average, maybe not, but there's definitely a racial component. If not in him directly, then definitely in his subordinates, for sure. We got DHS posting stuff on their website with white supremacist references blatantly in it. And then when they get called out, they're like, oopsie, I didn't notice, and they delete it. So there's the racial component, and then there's also sticking it to the blue states. Like, you telling me that there's this big of an illegal immigration problem in Minnesota, not so much Texas or Florida or California. No, it's because Minnesota is small enough that Trump knows he can run roughshod over them. California is big enough and populated enough and rich enough that he probably wouldn't be able to trot over them as much. Like Minneapolis only has something like 600 cops. I think their chief of police was just on TV the other day. So they got 600 police officers. Even if all 600 of them are good cops, and again, you could do a whole nother episode on policing. We'll give them the benefit of the day and say the benefit of the doubt. Say all 600 of them are good cops. Those cops are outnumbered 5-1 by ICE dudes. That's unbelievable. How many does it take? It's all about sending a message with him. You don't need 3,000 guys to enforce immigration in Minneapolis. For the same amount of money, you could have, 100 really well-trained guys with good equipment and good training. And by good equipment, I don't mean guns and tactical plates. I mean, like, computers and research assistants and stuff that they could use to find the employers that are bringing in these undocumented workers.
It sounds like you've tuned in or listened to some of the statements made by Governor Tim Walz of Minnesota and Mayor Jacob Frey of Minneapolis. What do you think the messaging should be from Democratic leaders? Because I think it's just a really tough place to be in, where ICE is seemingly, executing, as you said, and I agree, people in the streets. What line should they be walking here with their response, and what can you really tell a now kind of enraged voter base, particularly when that's, I think, what Trump wants to do, is enrage the citizens of Minnesota?
Yeah, I do not envy Tim Walz or Jacob Frey their job at all, because Trump is a vindictive prick. He can and will cut off like all funding. Like, oh, I guess Minneapolis ain't getting its highways fixed after the winter this year because we're going to cut off all federal funding. Because I'm a dickhead and Congress is so cowardly and disgusting that they won't stand up. Like, Congress people won't even stand up for their own districts, let alone the interests of the country as a whole. So it's not like they're going to do their job and legislate this funding. They're just going to let the executive branch do it. So he'll use executive orders and his unconstitutional control of government funding to punish the state of Minnesota. Or maybe he'll just send more of his friggin' private army there and step on some more people's necks. But you can't just let him run roughshod over you. I think Tim Walz is doing a pretty good job of walking that line right now, as we're recording this, of making it clear that this is not acceptable behavior, while still being willing to talk to the president. I thought that mobilizing the National Guard was a brilliant move by Tim Walz. Because I was watching some video earlier today on my lunch break of the National Guard in Minneapolis, and it was a colonel or a major, some other like mid to high level officer standing next to the protesters. He didn't have a rifle. He might have been wearing his sidearm. I'm not sure, but he didn't have a gun out or anything. And he's handing out coffee and he's shaking hands and he's talking to people. And the message is basically like, yeah, we're just here to make sure everybody's safe and everybody, including ICE, behaves. I thought that was really smart. And also it gets the Guard just mobilized by the state, which makes it harder for it to be federalized and sent out by the president.
Yeah, I saw the same video you're referring to. I think Walz did a great job in the lead up to deployment in the National Guard to emphasize that these are, fellow Minnesotans. They're there to protect you. They're there to, there are the people that we go to church with and play sports with, and just see all around our community. So they did a really good job, I think, of explaining why they were being deployed and kind of their purpose there. I guess the thing that I've been frustrated with for the first year of Trump's second, or I guess third term, if you believe that, is that it just seems like the actual national leadership of Democrats has been so lacking in their messaging and their, I guess, just their fervor to oppose Trump. I mean, every time I hear Hakeem Jeffries and Chucky Schumer speak, I just have no confidence that they're being able to move the ball in any meaningful direction to oppose what Trump's doing. Do you feel similarly? Have Democrats done enough, I guess, is my question to you?
No, they absolutely haven't. And Democratic leadership should have gotten out of the party, should have been forced out of the party years ago. We talked a little bit about the 2000 election. Around that same time is when the Tea Party came into power with Republicans. You can say what you will about Tea Party Republicans, and what could I say, a whole lot of not very nice stuff about a lot of them. But here's what was great about the Tea Party movement. A bunch of unhappy, on-the-ground, grassroots voters came out and said, hey, we're not going to vote for your ass. We're going to primary you, and we're going to put in our crazy Tea Party guy who wears a powdered wig to rallies. And then the establishment Republicans were like, no, you won't. And then they did. The Democrats should do the same thing. They should be like, hey, Chuck Schumer, I'm not voting for your ass anymore. You've made like $100 million in Congress. We're not voting for you or Pelosi anymore just because you have a D by your name. We're going to go the AOC route. And, we're going to vote for somebody young and energetic. And, the guy that AOC beat, and I already forget his name, and I hope the history will too, Joe something. He was like the number 4 Democrat in the House.
Yeah,
I was
Engel.
hoping that kind of momentum would stick around. Push out some of these old people And you don't have to be old to be a bad Democrat leader. Hakeem Jeffries is showing us that. But push out the old people, bring in some youthful energy. Maybe we could have an actual leftist party. Like, I was raised in the 80s, so of course it's like, anything socialist is the enemy. You just watch the Rocky movies, it'll teach you that. But maybe we could at least let those ideas be said out loud in the halls of Congress. 32 out of 33 of the most developed nations on earth have socialized medicine. Maybe we, the exceptional America First people, could figure it out. But those kind of ideas shouldn't be taboo to say. Instead of having a leftist party and a conservative party, we have a neo-lib party of warmongers and corporatists, and then a far-right conservative party that aren't even true conservatives, not classical conservatives, of warmongers and corporatists.
So are you kind of hoping that people like AOC and even, I know this is more local, but Mamdani have like a larger voice on the about politics and kind of moving the Democratic Party a little bit further left?
Yeah, absolutely. I was so happy that Zoran Mamdani won, because I believe that he's going to really benefit the city of New York, and that having some actual leftist ideals in place will help the city. But it's also going to push that Overton window back to the left. During the Clinton administration, the Overton window of discussion got pushed so far to the right that it became almost unthinkable to mention, things like universal childcare or whatever. You'd get laughed out of the room. So I think it's good that those ideas are being brought forth and at least into the discussion. I think he will be successful, but even if he's not, he at least got that stuff back into the mix, into contention. And because, of course, it's New York City, that puts it all on the national stage.
Right, of course. And kind of going back to what you said before about Bernie Sanders, I think the one thing, even though he didn't win, either primary for the general election, or for the Democratic Party, I should say, at least he brought into the fold kind of more lefty ideas. And I think the 2020 Democratic primary is probably the furthest left that the majority of the candidates went. I mean, like, I remember during one of the debates, they had everyone raise their hand who supported Medicare for all. And I think all but one raised their hand to that question, which I would never imagine before, Bernie was in the mix there.
Yeah, that would have not even been a question in previous election cycles. It wouldn't even have been worthy of mention on the stage.
Okay, just looking forward to the future. If you had your choice of nominee for the 2028 general election for the Democratic Party, who would be your choice as of right now?
That's really hard to say because so much can happen between now and then. But if we just time skip forward to 2028, then I would want somebody like a Zoran Mamdani, somebody charismatic and young with new ideas who has a lot of popular support. Somebody that can actually win and get in there, and they're not going to be able to get all their stuff done. No president can, but they're going to be able to at least move the ball. Mamdani Cortez 28. Put it on a bumper sticker. Or Cortez Mamdani if you want to switch it. She's got a little more experience.
Yeah, I think whatever happens in 2028, I hope that the Democratic primary is a wide field, at least to start with. I think that would be interesting just to have them fight it out and just see where it goes, because I don't want it to be like in 2016 where you basically have, 5 candidates on the stage for the first couple of primary debates, and it just felt like Clinton was inevitable, despite, Bernie putting up a good fight. I just have a few questions to wind down with, Ken. A couple random ones I wasn't able to ask earlier. We kind of skipped over them. One of the reasons why, I shouldn't say one of the reasons you went viral, but you were seen taking pictures at the end of that debate with a disposable camera. Just kind of a random question. What did you ever do with those photos?
Well, everybody on the stage had one of those because we weren't allowed to bring our own cameras or cell phones or anything. So the Commission on Presidential Debates that was running the event, they gave us those cameras so we could take pictures. It was the only way we could take any. But I was the one that got sort of captured on camera taking the pictures because I was standing alone in the middle of the stage taking the pictures. Everybody else was sort of milling around talking to Donald Trump or I did get to talk to Bill Clinton a little bit, but everybody else was, trying to talk to the candidates off to the side. I knew I wouldn't get that much time with them. I might be able to shake their hand or whatever. And I just thought all the audio visual equipment was really neat. I've always been like an AV nerd. So I was taking the shot you saw on TV of me leaning back and taking a picture up high. I was taking a picture of the boom camera. It was the biggest like crane jib camera I had ever seen. And I was like, ooh, neat. As to what I did with the pictures, I got them developed. Izod got them developed for me because I didn't have time. I gave them to a production assistant when I was in Washington, D.C. They got them developed, and because it was on a cheap disposable camera and it was really dark on the stage, none of them was really worth a damn. I think I've got them someplace, and they just look like really far away shots down a hallway of some camera equipment and like one of Hillary Clinton really far away. They didn't look that good.
Hey, they might be in a museum someday. That's interesting. They made it feel like the disposable camera thing was like a Ken Bone special, but everyone had them. I did not know that.
Yeah, I don't think there's really any good like footage of seeing other people use theirs. I'm not sure if they just didn't use them much or if it just didn't get caught on film. But like I said, I was out in the middle of the stage all alone using mine, so it was really easy to see me do it, I guess.
So 10 years into this viral moment, I guess, how do you look back on your rise to fame? Do you view it as a net positive or a net negative for your life?
I mean, for my life, it's been positive. I mean, of course, it comes with its trials. There's been lots of bomb threats. I've had SWAT teams at my door many times. I've been swatted. I've been death threatened. I've been all that stuff. And of course, like every stupid thing I've ever said on the internet or in person to anybody was dug up out of the past because we love to milkshake duck people or whatever. But also go back in my Reddit account. It's Stan Gibson 18 and scroll all the way to the beginning and see that even though I said some dumb things that I had to talk about in the New York Times, I haven't deleted any of those. So you can still look at them and still ask me about them if you want to. I believe in learning from your mistakes and growing, not deleting them and hiding from them. But even with that bad stuff, it was a net positive, and I made some money off it. I think I made about, in total, like 2 years worth of my salary between like some endorsement deals and stuff that I made. And I gave 10% of that to charity, and I made sure that the companies I worked with gave some of the money, gave some of money on their end to the charities. I think overall I've been able to raise 50 or 60 grand for charities between some, different stuff I've done and contracts I've signed with companies. I was able to get thousands of people registered to vote during like, several voter registration initiatives, just sort of get people more engaged. So I think it was a positive thing overall for the community. And it was definitely a net positive for me. And I learned a lot about more than I ever needed to know about television and radio and politics and podcasting and technology and just a lot of stuff. And I got to do some amazing things. Like Disney invited me out to go to the premiere of Doctor Strange. I was already in Las Vegas for the third debate. I went to cover it for Jimmy Kimmel. He asked me to go cover it and be like his man on the scene, which was a pretty fun comedy bit. And then while I was there, Disney reached out to me and asked me to come to the premiere of Doctor Strange. It was not long after they had acquired Marvel, and like take some pictures on the red carpet. And I was like, I'll go, but only if I can bring my wife. They're like, of course. So my wife and I get to go to Vegas for the debate. She parties in Vegas while I'm doing the events. And then we go to LA and I get to walk my lovely wife, my favorite human being, down the red carpet at a Hollywood premiere. How many Midwestern working class guys get to do something like that? So even if that was the only thing, I might do it all over again.
That's incredible.
I read and I was surprised by this. Is it true the red sweater only was auctioned off for $10,000? I thought it'd go for far more than that.
Well, I had to keep it for longer than I would have liked because I still needed it. But yeah, by the time I sold it, it had been a couple weeks. I sold it back to Izod for $10,000, and that all went to charity. I didn't keep any of that. And that was they put it in their archives. They've still got it in New York. It's probably in a drawer or something now. But their same archive has other famous garments that they've made, like James Dean's leather jacket from Rebel Without a Cause, and Michael Jackson's moonwalk shoes. They were made by the same parent company that owns Izod. So it's all in there. So all of that's behind glass cases, and my sweater's in a box or whatever.
Ken, our final question for you, and thank you so much again for being here. Anything you want to shout out? Where can people find you, and what's next for Ken Bone?
Oh, I'm at KenBone18 on X or Twitter or whatever you want to call it. I've still got a pretty decent following. I have like 150,000 followers, and probably only 90,000 of them are bots. So I'm doing pretty good.
It's a pretty good ratio for Twitter these days, or X.
Yeah, it's just there's this great account. I already forgot the name of it, but he tweets stuff like, "I just slipped and fell in my driveway. Fuck ice." And that causes the bots to come out because they're watching for certain terms like fuck ice. And then, then there's all these bots responding like, "But he had a gun and no ID." It just exposes bot accounts. He does it with all kinds of news stories. I wish I could remember his handle. But yeah, you can find me there. You can book me on Cameo if you want to spend $20 to tell your brother-in-law happy birthday from the sweater guy. But other than that, I mostly just do my job at the power plant and come home and watch anime with my wife and hang out on the weekends.
I love that so much. And we'll be sure to link to all that in our show description. Just want to thank you so much again. And maybe we'll even have you back. I really enjoyed our time here tonight.
Yeah, sure. I'll come back. Whatever you want to talk about. You could call me a friend of the show or whatever. Just let me know.
Perfect.
Awesome.
We appreciate that.
Thank you once again, and have a good night.
You bet. Great talking to you.
Thanks, Ken.
Thank you, everyone, for listening to another episode of the Gohndim and Gilmore Show. Check the links in the show description to see where you can find us. Join our Discord to interact with us and submit questions for the next show. As always, your support is much appreciated. Until next time, adios.
Bye-bye.